Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Carl Fitzpatrick.
Southeast Radio.
Jim Joyce recently completed an IPO for his company, HealthBeacon. HealthBeacon's smart technology has achieved exceptional growth in the booming digital health sector, and Jim joins us now to tell us more. Jim, I'd like to start the interview by getting an insight into your own distinguished career.
So my own background is I'm originally from Boston. I've been living in Ireland now for the last 16 years. Famously, I describe myself as probably American-Irish instead of Irish-American, meaning I'm originally from America and I've relocated to Ireland. I built my career up in the pharmaceutical industry. I was the managing director of the Irish business for Schering-Plough Pharmaceuticals, and then I went on to set up my first company, a company called Point of Care, which is a health services organization, and then now embarking on the most exciting challenge in my career, which is really building a global digital health technology company called HealthBeacon.
And Jim, how did your time as managing director of Schering-Plough in Ireland prepare you for self-employment, firstly with your business Point of Care and more recently then, of course, with HealthBeacon?
Yeah, I know. I think for anyone listening that's thinking about going on their own and working in as an entrepreneur or self-employment, it's just a fantastic time early in your career to work for one of these big multinationals. For me, it was the pharmaceutical industry with Schering-Plough. You learned how to manage complex problems. You learned how to communicate. You learn to build a network, and then specifically for me, try to build an expertise in an important area, important global industry of pharmaceutical development and manufacturing. So I came away with the view after my 10 years at Schering-Plough, which was I needed all 10 years of training in order to try to be successful, myself in a healthcare organization or setting up my own company.
And you ultimately sold Point of Care to Uniphar, but at what point did you realise that it was the right time to sell that business?
Yeah, so I mean, I think a lot of things. I ran the company I built it up over 8 years. It was, I had left Schering-Plough. The fundamental premise on Point of Care was that there needed to be more service companies to help Irish patients migrate, that were on medications like injectable or IV administration medications to be able to migrate to the community or to be able to get care in their home. So it was a big, complex challenge. We had acquired lots of contracts. We'd worked with the HSE and the pharmaceutical companies, but we were really looking for scale. We were looking for size and backup and support and partnerships in order for the company to be long-term successful. So when, Uniphar originally invested in us, and then they had, a big growing client base, that it just dawned on me that the best way to scale this organization was to sell it into Uniphar and have it become a really well-resourced and division inside a much larger company.
So where did the idea for HealthBeacon then come from?
Yeah, so I mean, for me, I think a lot of things. It feels like a 20-year overnight success in some ways. The fundamental work that I had done as a pharmaceutical executive, launching injectable medication brands, we would spend tons and tons of time trying to onboard patients on injectable medications, and then ultimately try to help them be successful on them. So the work I did there was informative, and then when I built out Point of Care as a services company, we saw that a lot of pharmaceutical companies were hiring us to do that work, to send nurses into the home, to train patients up on injectable medication. So the idea really came from us trying to kind of initially win business, within the pharmaceutical industry and be relevant to the patients. We saw that every patient on an injectable medication needed something called a sharp spin. And we were being asked to kind of supply these sharp spins. And we said, what if these sharp spins were intelligent? What if they could tell us when patients were struggling on their medications? Then we could target our support and our services to help those patients. So really one day in a conference room, as we were sitting there trying to solve that problem, it dawned on us that we could manufacture smart sharp spins that could help people adhere to the medication and ultimately be successful.
So how is HealthBeacon now going about solving that problem?
So any patient that goes on an injectable medication needs a level of support and care. We've designed this thing called a smart sharp spin that kind of is an elegant tool that goes into the patient's home and helps them adhere to the medication schedule by reminding them when it's time to take their medication. It tells them where to inject on their body. And then, but from the act of disposal, after they're done with their injection therapy and throwing it into the device, we use image recognition to confirm that the right medication has been taken at the right time, and we create a really valuable health record that's fed back into their clinician, from that act of disposal of their used injection. So when our technology goes into a patient's home, they're 20 to 30% more likely to persist to their medication or adhere to it as a result of both the support, the practical support we're giving, and this, digital intervention.
And how does this device actually prompt the patient to take their medication?
Yeah, so we have a couple of different prompts that are happening. So you have this kind of lovely looking device that might be sitting in your kitchen or your bedroom, and it lights up and it tells you where in your body you need to inject. On your phone is a companion app, and that is alerted either through text or through a notification from your companion app. So you get two levels of alert. If you don't take your medication as your schedule was prescribed, then it will remind you. It'll notice that nothing was dropped into the sharp spin, and it will send you a reminder a little bit later.
So in terms of the data then that you are collecting, is that for the benefit of the patient only, or is it also being shared with their consultant?
Yeah, so we always strive that it's centrally for the benefit of the patient. So the patient controls their data, but with their consent, we will, automatically integrate their data back into their clinician, into their doctor's office or back into their pharmacist or whoever is part of their care team.
And Jim, I can see a real need for this product, no doubt about that, but what is your route to market?
Yeah, so we have a couple of different distribution channels. We started off in life working with the pharmaceutical companies. So we went into the manufacturers and we said, they had existing patient support programs in place, and we said, would you add this? Would you pay for this for the patients that are on your medications, and would you add it to their your patient support program? So we've done that. And so in that case, you would go to your doctor's office, and if you went on a specific drug, you might be offered the HealthBeacon system. Our second route to market in the U.S. is we've signed a very large contract with a big organization called Hamilton Beach, which is a consumer appliance company, and the patients can go in the U.S. They could walk right into a CVS or a Walgreens or a Walmart, and they'll be able to later on in the year actually buy the device either through a website, or in a retail store setting.
And is it a subscription-based model then that's in play in terms of the overall business model?
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right. So what we do is we're charging for every active user. We or either directly to the patient or to the pharmaceutical company or healthcare system, we charge a monthly fee.
Now, this business is certainly one that has achieved international growth to date, but much of which has been attributed specifically in the US market. Is that right, Jim?
Yeah, well, certainly in between 2020 and 2021, we've signed a number of really transformational deals in the U.S., so that's driven that. But yeah, you're right. We see the U.S. as being the real growth driver over the next 2 years.
And I am aware as well, of course, that HealthBeacon recently raised 25 million euros as part of its IPO. So how exactly is that funding going to be used? Yeah,
so so right now, we ended the year with about 10,000 devices implemented across 15 countries, between different clients and in different therapeutic conditions, where we have our 2-year forecast is to get ourselves to 100,000 units over the next 2 years. So the 25 million, a big portion of it will be going to actually building out the product to take us from 10,000 units to 100,000 units. So, it's a physical product that we have to invest in our supply chain. The other big piece will be scaling the actual, people part of the organization. Today, we're close to 60 people, and we'll be looking to grow that to 150 people by the end of 2023.
And tell us about your recent IPO and why this was an important strategic move for HealthBeacon.
Yeah, so for us, prior to the IPO, we had raised about 25 million euros in the private markets. We knew, we needed to scale the organization, and we wanted long-term access to capital, as well as a strong platform to be able to kind of evangelize what we're trying to do. We think we can. There's 30 million people between the U.S. and Europe on injectable medications, and we wanted a transparent, platform, long-term access to capital, so we can serve as many of them as possible. So when we weighed that up, we talked, with potential investors. We appointed an excellent, investment bank in Goodbody, And we assessed the market, and we got really good reaction from investors willing to kind of back us in an IPO.
And Jim, what's on your roadmap in terms of product innovation?
Yeah, so we are, so first of all, like our product today, our technology today in terms of an injectable home solution is the leading product on the market right now. But while early on its growth journey, it is the leading technology. So we're going to lean into our existing product and do lots of product innovation on the software side, on the companion app side. And then by the end of 2022, we're going to be introducing new hardware tools that will, look at other areas of medication management that we can move into, and then other devices that might be able to track some of the healthcare outcomes.
And of course, the HealthBeacon product today is currently focused on those really that are using a syringe. But what about, for instance, for patients that are taking tablet-based medication? Are you looking at that particular area and considering a product for that?
Yeah, again, like we haven't made a specific announcement on that, but the short answer is that's a natural extension for us to move into. Where we have such an opportunity to be real leaders in this important place of injectable medications. It's a really important kind of methodology for getting medications into patients. So we want to clearly establish our leadership and then expand out into areas like what you're talking about. We just haven't announced the details of that yet.
And from a broader perspective, what are your expectations for digital health tech over the coming years?
Yes, I think we have all experienced, an absolute transformation in terms of how healthcare is managed and delivered. Pre-COVID times, doctors would have been a novelty to put in tools like remote patient monitoring tools or to do virtual telehealth appointments, and now they're considered very mainstream. So we've just seen an absolute transformation in how healthcare is being delivered. Governments have stepped up, put reimbursement pathways. Doctors are now using it, like telehealth visits as a primary, source of treating their patients. So we see that we're only at the beginning of a mega trend. And healthcare systems, clinicians, governments are going to step up and start putting in really, really clear pathways. So I see it as an exciting time for us to really look at leveraging all these tools rather than seeing them as, clever innovations in the primary way of delivering. They're now going to be, primary techniques, and HealthBeacon as a fundamental tool to help people adhere to these really important medications. We see ourselves right in the center lane of that transformation.
Well, if you've just tuned in, that was Jim Joyce from HealthBeacon, and I'd like to thank Jim for sharing his exciting success story with us this morning.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Carl Fitzpatrick.
Southeast.